Please call roll.
Recording in progress.
Oh, I've heard that before.
Commissioner Rossi?
Here.
Commissioner Hallen?
Here.
Commissioner Sheard?
Here.
Commissioner Jensen?
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Jenkins?
Here.
And I do have Carl on via Zoom. So before we begin, I'm going to go ahead and just ask the quorum that is here in person if they are okay with Carl participating virtually. Due to the new legislature in 2024, he is allowed to do so as long as the majority of the quorum that is present authorizes him to do so.
Yes.
By official
Yes.
vote or because I
Yes.
consent. So,
That's good.
right.
Perfect. Thank you. I just needed a general consensus.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Salute. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
may be seated. Do we have anybody here to speak on non-agenda items today?
Yes, we do. We have one public commenter. We have TJ Jensen.
Hello, I appreciate your time. I am representing both the seller and the buyer on 1684 and 1650 Robinson Street, which is the old YMCA facilities. I've been working with Wes and Pat, trying to figure out how to address the zoning issues with those. They're quasi-government and nonprofit only, but the rest of the neighborhood is residential mixed use. And that would probably be better defined by Wes or Patrick in the future. But what I've been instructed by both the seller and the buyer is, in order for that to be completed and be utilized for any purpose other than a nonprofit church or government facility, we'd have to apply for a rezone and also for a general plan amendment. Neither party's able to pay the $14,000 fee. So I am here to let you know that we will be presenting an application to Wes potentially in the next week or two to start the process to rezone. Without the rezoning, the buildings are almost useless. But both parties are bringing to the table something pretty valuable to the community. One will be a cultural center. It's a religious cultural center that'll be open to the public and to their members. They're coming from Yuba City. And the other one is a private enterprise, but it's an online enterprise where they sell their wares online. So that'll generate tax for our community as well. Both will be low impact and they'll have to be vetted. But mainly my concern is the large fee because in that neighborhood, everything else is already, it only applies to these two buildings, probably because they were nonprofit back when they did the general plan. So I just wanted to kind of measure the planning commission to see if that's going to be an option. So the YMCA, of course, has closed those facilities. They're not able to afford the pools. The city's been very generous in partnering at the municipal, and they're able to stay in Orville. Otherwise, they would have been gone by now. So just wanted to let you guys know that we'll be bringing an application to hopefully waive that fee when we submit. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
That's all I had for submitted public comments, sir.
Can I have a question about that?
We're not allowed to take any.
Not even a question? I guess what I'm wondering is, in order to waive the fee, does it have to come to this body, or is it a staff decision, or how does that work?
The council would have to be, would waive the fee.
Okay. And so it could go to the council, and that's where the decision could be made?
Right.
Okay.
This commission could recommend approval or denial as
Reducing
well.
it too, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that would be
It's
great.
pretty outrageous, yeah.
Yeah, it is. I think it would be, we need that, we need good businesses in there, not empty buildings with expensive fees.
Yeah, and I know I've made a point before that the general plan seems to have overzoned for public use,
Yes.
restrictive zoning, so I think I'd be open to looking at it, yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yes, this is an unusual meeting in that we have no projects, but we do have some exciting topics. And I would like to remind the commission that one of its duties in our city charter is that the City Planning Commission shall initiate studies and make reports and recommendations to the council and the various departments of the city government on subjects related to the opening and widening of streets and other physical conditions connected with the development and expansion of the city. That is in addition to oversight of Title 17, our zoning code. At the last Planning Commission meeting there at the State Theater, we mentioned that our engineering team has been designing some streetscape improvements on several streets in the city. And at the last meeting, every head here nodded positively to request staff to come and talk to the Planning Commission about these projects. And we are therefore honored to have Fred Mayo here. He's our city's Public Works Director. And he'll be presenting what the engineering team has been doing. And then after that, Warren Jensen has some bike route and bicycle recommendations to make.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good.
All right, starting to feel like Friday. It's getting there. So thank you, Wes. As Wes mentioned, that the engineering department has been pretty busy looking at how to reimagine. Well, let me back up a little bit. This all started with the transformational project of Highway 162, which is going to be starting probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks. Hopefully, maybe a little bit sooner than that. And you guys much know about what the project that entails on the south side of 162 from Highway 70 all the way up to Olive Highway to Foothills, sidewalk gap eliminations, new stoplight improvements, new street lighting, storm drain improvements, and a high hazard crosswalk at Spencer Avenue. So that's going to be a really great piece. So with that in mind, we were originally started out looking at Washington Avenue between Montgomery roundabout to 162 as a grind and replace asphalt project in the current existing format. As we were looking at it and we got some of the soil samples back, that it was going to be a lot more than what we envisioned it was going to be. We were thinking around $2 million, came back much more than that. So when we were thinking about this, reattached to BCAG and became a lot more a much greater participant in BCAG than what the city has in the last several years. As fate would have it, the ATP grant process for Cycle 7 is coming out. And that's where the genesis really came from of us starting to reimagine, if you will, the corridor of Washington Avenue through Table Mountain, all the way up to County Center to Highway 162. So what does that mean? So we're looking at the original footprint of Washington Avenue. It's roughly, give me a second. It's about a 50-foot right-of-way. Let me, hold on. It's been a lot of numbers today, so forgive me. So the existing roadway on Washington Avenue right now is 56 feet of right-of-way. Instead of us just going through, trying to replace, fix the base failure, and have what we have, we started to evolve through, what about mode transportation shift, because that's what the state's looking for. How do we get connectivity from the north part of the city to the south part of the city? And that's where we are today. Obviously, we all know Table Mountain, Washington Avenue is the only pedestrian corridor to get people from the north part of the city to the south and south to the north. And the bicycle and the pedestrian facilities are not great. So what we're proposing to do on Washington Avenue, there's a couple alternatives, if you will. First alternative is what we have. So we are currently actively working on submitting an ATP grant application with the state. It's about a 4-week window for us to do that, 6 weeks. We're currently working with a contractor to develop that. And what we want to do is reimagine the corridor. That would be new street lighting, taking more of our right-of-way, because we have a 60-foot right-of-way out there. And we're only utilizing about 56 feet of it, which is challenging because Pacific Gas and Electric And the telephone, the poles are, if not right in the center of the sidewalk, they're right on the edge. So that gives us problems with accessibility. There's no safe bike. We've all been down Washington Avenue. It's a mess, especially during school, before, after. We're really envisioning to widening the sidewalk up to 8 feet on one side and widening the sidewalk to 5 feet on the other side, with tree wells on both sides of the streets potentially, to really spruce it up, to reimagine that neighborhood and potentially new street lighting as well, get rid of this stuff. We're working with PG&E in a very early negotiation, I can't stress that enough, to realign their poles if we can. That would really give us a little bit more space to open up on our sidewalks and to have a bi-directional bike path mode shift on Washington Avenue. That would roughly be from 162 up to just short of the railroad bridge. And then we'll have to kind of push down to go over the bridge into the roundabout. That's where Table Mountain comes in. Now, there are some bike facilities. There's a wider sidewalk up there. There's 8-foot wide sidewalks now, but we know the farther north we go and we get out towards the civic or the county center, there's a significant amount of sidewalk gaps. We want to go in, eliminate the sidewalk gaps, have connectivity to our sidewalks and bike lanes, mode shift once again, wide sidewalks, potential 13-foot center medians with treescapes in some parts of the street, and up down to 8 feet in other sections, and landscaped on the side with a wide sidewalk for mode shift. That way we're connected all the way from the county center all the way down to 162, and this would kind of align with the project winding down at 162. That's provided that we're successful with the ATP grant, which we're going for. And we've already done a couple workshops and community outreach on it. It's a really exciting project. You can see in some of the diagrams. There's a couple of real great potentials. Anything to soften up the space there, move some of the utility poles. Let's make this a lot more accessible because this corridor on Washington is very important. We have all the new housing up on the hill. There's no decent bike path to get to the high school, to get to the churches. There's another continuation high school down there. And it's also the corridor to get us down to mass transit too, and to the commercial shopping, to the old downtown area, and to the 162 corridor. So we feel it's a very important project, and it's a great thing for the city. And we're actually very, very excited about it. Any questions so far?
What section of Washington?
Yeah, exactly.
Which one?
At Yard Street.
The four ways yard.
Is that the church right there? And the lower
Yes,
right?
it'd be the church on both sides of the street. That is correct. Yes. But what I'd also like, that I failed to mention on this project too, would actually introduce more high visibility sidewalk or crosswalks rather that don't currently exist. So there's not a real good flow to cross the street safely, and just there's no accessibility on the corners too. It makes it challenging for anybody who's got mobility issues, or they have children and there's a bicycle or a stroller. So
Would PG underground that? Keep it overhead.
most likely, I can't speak for PG&E, but I would imagine they'd want to relocate their poles. If that's possible. It's probably the cheapest and the quickest way for them to do it. Me personally, I would love to see it underground.
Yeah, underground would really clean it
Yeah,
up.
I mean,
But
it's night and day.
Yes, but that's millions of dollars. for
attaching it to
PG&E.
the,
Aren't they doing it right now? They're gonna do 300?
In
They are
Paradise.
doing different parts over, yes, up off the Olive Highway, that is correct. That's been planned for several years at this point, so that's finally coming to fruition. And if you start underground and doing the Rule 20 type stuff, that sets that timeline way back too, because PG&E's pretty busy doing a lot of other things. I would love to do the undergrounding, but I'm not sure if it's practical for this project. It's high on my wish list, though, for sure.
I lived on the corner there of Washington and Yard from about 85 to 2000.
Okay.
And then since then, I commute through there every day, so long time. And I don't think that's a good place for bulbs.
The bulb out?
Yeah, the bulb outs, with the school buses going up there. If you go down to Montgomery and Myers, the B line comes through there, and they can't make a right-hand turn because of the bulb out.
Yeah, I've been there. Stayed back just so.
we're trying to minimize as much as that as we can. And part of the bulb out piece also is traffic lane size is going to stay the same. It's to give it the visual of necking down and to actually make some of this on-street parking a lot safer than what it is. I parked out there recently, last week, and I thought I was gonna lose my door trying to open it up. It was, there's people, it's posted 25 miles an hour. I think we all see that. There's a lot of folks that go over 25 miles an hour down that street.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a
maybe
challenge.
30, 35, but
Yeah.
you get a lot of traffic. I mean, traffic's now backing up from Olive Highway all the way through Mitchell and down to Washington.
It's that main
I
thoroughfare.
Personally, I think this should prioritize traffic. It's a main route for Cal Fire and the sheriffs to be able to get to the East Foothills and the South County, and slowing down traffic, I don't think I don't think that is the best place to do it.
Well, to be honest with you, it's just not fire and first responders. They take priority, but it's the vast majority of the rest of the traffic that we need to really be concerned about. The kids that are crossing the street to go to school, the folks
yeah,
that are going to
let's-
their churches.
let's make it-
It's kind of our concern too.
Let's
But
make
I
it-
understand what you're
I
saying.
just
Yeah,
have a
I
lot
don't
of
disagree.
experience with the area,
Yes.
and you don't get a lot of, I mean, the sidewalks are pretty good there. I have some other ideas about getting people around there too. I think most people from there seem to go down, from that neighborhood, maybe go downtown, and maybe don't go south it's not used as a bike route to go towards the South Orville or the hospital. I see to get people from the South Orville to downtown, Lincoln and Myers should have something like this. Definitely Lincoln needs continuous sidewalk and bike lane from the city limits to Montgomery. I would say definitely Lincoln, especially with the other new subdivisions they're talking about going in south. Probably Myers should have the same. Lots of sidewalk gaps on both of those roads. I see high school kids walking in the dirt and in the road on Oral Quincy Highway and on Foothill Boulevard going to Ishii. Oral Quincy between Oro Dam and the new apartments don't have continuous sidewalk, and high school kids walk in the dirt and on the street there. I just see this as having what it needs, minus the ADA. I mean, there's probably not even ramps on all four of those corners currently. So I could see it definitely needs improvement like that. But I know this would be a very expensive project, and I just see some of these other areas in town really need sidewalks. If not just a few feet of extension on each side of the pavement for a bike lane. And as far as Table Mountain goes, it's probably that south median on the roundabout. I'd like to see that changed to having maybe a bull nose and a different taper, so that the left lane was a through lane from Grand Avenue to Nelson to the roundabout. There's 2 B-line bus stops on the right side. So if you're using the right lane as a through lane, the B-line bus stops there. People swerve around the buses. Normally left lane's a through lane, but
Yeah, that one's designed a little bit different there at Nelson for sure.
yeah, it gets some traffic doing some funny things.
Is that by the Valero station?
All the way to the left side right there. The white thing is the median.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right,
If
that's
you,
past the Valero?
yeah, if you merged from the right to the left instead of the left to the right,
That's going into the roundabout.
Going in the
Yes.
roundabout, heading towards,
Yeah, head northbound out of town.
Yeah, that roundabout should have been designed, I think, with the two lanes as, as specified, but it's going to require re-engineering to change it, unfortunately. I think we can recognize that that's a taller order. I just wanted to make sure we have a distinction here between slowing down traffic and calming traffic. In the case of the Washington Avenue corridor, the improvements are intended to calm traffic, just to make sure that that there is more visibility of pedestrians and bicycles are going to be crossing at Yard Avenue. And I think that's the point of the bulbing, is the calming as opposed to just trying to slow down traffic overall, right?
Yeah, that is correct. And we're also, the part of the bulbing too is to actually give an area for safe on-street parking there, because we're trying to minimize on-street parking.
And that's
Lots out in
really-
front of houses.
Sorry to interrupt you, but living there for that time,
Yes.
you could not leave your home on a Sunday because you would not be able to park again. We had no on-site parking. It was only on-street parking. And with the two churches, and if there's a tournament at the high school, there's no parking anywhere near there,
Understand.
so.
And that's why we want to keep the parking there. We're trying to keep the parking because we have, the challenge is that we have a major traffic corridor that's very narrow that we need to rebuild because it's crumbling, right? Assuming
correct.
that's why this is our priority as opposed, Lincoln is kind of crumbling too, but perhaps you could speak to why this is has been a priority over Lincoln or another corridor. But yeah, we want to keep this as a traffic corridor. Ultimately, for longer range planning, we would be thinking about ways that we could expand the right of way. And I know that's involving taking over neighboring properties and eminent domain and whatnot. But it's something I would like to at least have a conversation about for the long term. As Oroville grows in the next 50 years, this is just a situation that's going to get worse, being really the only north-south corridor other than the freeway.
It's the only one, exactly. And that's why we're trying to attack this and look at this in a very holistic way. The roadway is what we have. We have right-of-way there. Removing some of those park strips there to give more on-street parking out of the parking lanes and to provide better sidewalks. The sidewalks are a little under 5 feet wide. So then you put a PG&E pole in it. There is issues with people with strollers and bicycles. And I agree, you don't see a lot of bicycles on that part of Washington because I think it's because of the congestion on that road and with people driving. With the on-street parking, cars driving down the road, and there's no room on the sidewalk. And that's what we're trying to address. We're not adding them to the road. We're going for a multi-mode pathway, which would actually be where the existing sidewalk is on the west side of the street, and widen it.
So it would be this, what you have.
The recommended.
Walk
Yes.
and bike.
Yes, that's correct.
Can I add?
No.
When Fred and I both first started, we had a meeting at BCAG, and they told us there is no more money coming our way for paving. That's done. So now if you want to pave a street, or if you want to redo a street, you have to have multimodal aspects to it.
Absolutely.
So this all of a sudden it started looking really good because, as Fred said, taking people from all the way up north, all the way down to Oradam Boulevard, without us having to pay anything, became really attractive.
So who said there's no more money?
The county, Butte County.
BCAG.
BCAG did, but the
The
state's-
governor's stating that
Yeah.
there's less likeliness to get funding for capacity on roadway expansions. However, money is available for mode shift transportation. In other words, making it a better bike-friendly, making it a better pedestrian-friendly corridor to try to encourage folks from driving as much.
So if we do this 10-foot bike lane pedestrian right away, there's unlimited funds?
Well, not unlimited, but
Nobody said that.
That's what we're hoping for.
I'll be clear of that. No unlimited funds. No, but I'll put it this way. So by going for the ATP grant, okay, we're competing with the whole state. I think you guys are all aware of that. We're going to compete with Riverside. We're competing with Orange County. We're competing with San Francisco, Alameda, you name it, okay? The only way we're competitive with this type of project, first of all, the city can't afford this on its own. We don't have enough money for roadway construction just to mill, grind, and re-asphalt. It's going to take a couple years to save because of 162, for example. So if we're doing all of this, let's go for the ATP grant, because there's no guarantee we're going to win. or be awarded anything. It gives us the chance to transform this area. It gives us the chance to actually make that bike path that safe and encourage pedestrian traffic and bicycle traffic, because there's not a good thoroughfare right now.
I just don't think this is a build it and it will come situation on that road, but I understand why you're trying to get the money to fix it. I've also thought there's, high schoolers walk across the bridge on Washington on the railroad, over the railroad crossing on the side where there's no sidewalk. What did you have planned in that?
We're
There's
not
only
going to
side-
touch that side of the bridge right now. There is enough room for the bike path and the pedestrian on the, I'm going to dub that on the west side. We start making structural changes to a bridge. Now we're getting into dealing with the railroad.
I understand
and that's
that.
years and years
Yeah.
and years. Long term, it would be great to have a pre-built
On long.
concrete or something like that and drop one in. for
On
the
long
pedestrian.
term, I've thought the end of Bridge Street was a bridge. There's still abutments there.
Sure.
I don't know if they could still structurally support a pedestrian bridge.
I would imagine so, but I'm not an engineer. I can't speak to that. And we're still going into the realm with the railroad, which could put it in for several years to get anything through the railroad. So we're trying to make the best situation out of all of this. You know, because we're going to be doing a new resurfacing of the Montgomery roundabout this summer. There's going to be new striping, new asphalt. And, you know, we really like to tag along off the 162 project, beautify this corridor here, and then take it all the way to Table Mountain. We think it's, again, it sounds like a very holistic, great project for us. There's more living up there than what there was even a couple of years ago, and there's more building coming. And that should encourage, I do believe if we build it, they will come. I'm going to be clear on that, because there is a lot more people. And, you know, with all the community outreach we've done 2 workshops, and we did a lot of outreach at Arbor Day. We have a Survey Monkey online right now. And the vast majority on the Survey Monkey, it's like 85% in favor of these projects. The surveys that we were doing at Arbor Day, which was about 30 people, which is pretty good for people wanting to take a survey from us, it was 95% people wanted to see these improvements, and they're excited about it. That's pretty compelling. It's a small sample, granted, but it's a very compelling story of what it's saying. I personally knocked on every door down the Washington corridor, from Washington all the way down to Spencer, all the way up to the top of Table Mountain. I talked to probably 30 people. I handed out over 300 flyers for the workshop. And the folks that I talked to, hands down, were excited about this potential project. Yes, there was a couple people that said, yeah, you know, it's great. You could fix a road over here. Don't spend the money there. Most were excited about it because it doesn't exist right now. Not only does it connect the 162 corridor all the way up to County Center, it also connects us to the Brad Freeman that we don't actually have right now. And there's miles of bike trails there as well. So again, that kind of gives it more of a holistic approach. This isn't the end of bike lane network and mode shift either for downtown Oroville, because I do believe there's other opportunities out there, without a doubt. But this is the first key piece. We get this corridor anchored, it gives us more opportunity, better competitiveness for future years for ATP funding, so we can do these other road projects that you're talking about and these other bike lane improvements. I agree. And so that's why it's so important for us to try to get this first piece landed, and because it's a big deal.
Orange Point. What about, so when you lived there, you couldn't park because of the churches and things? Is that why?
Yeah, there's, the one church on the southwest corner has no parking lot. So there's all street
They have
parking.
no parking lot.
No, it's all street parking.
Yeah.
Well, that's not good. I mean, what about in the tight areas right around where you're talking about the bulbs? Why can't we make that permit parking only?
Because most of those parks where those bulbs are at, they're on corners. And effective of next year or the first of next year, you can't park on corners anyways. It's becoming a law. It's like 24 feet on the corners.
Okay.
They're gonna become red zones anyways. So, and that's, it's not good practice to, just go down Montgomery. You guys see what it's like on these corners, just trying to pull it out. It's like, "Yeah, I think it's safe," and you get 5 feet, here comes another car. But it's kind of the same thing, so.
I mean, this is a microcosm of the issue. I mean, the infrastructure here, again, you know, we've added so many apartments, low income, market rate, whatever, but we've added so many without addressing the infrastructure issue. So we're dumping another, you know, 1,600, 2,000 cars with the apartments that we brought in without any infrastructure updating. You can't do that. That's always city's downfall, is inadequate infrastructure, from my belief. And so, yeah, I mean, anything that's going to improve these roads, I'm all for it. Now, again, I don't know if this is the right spot for it, but if it's the only north-south corridor, then maybe it is. I don't have an issue with the bike lanes or pedestrian lanes, I think it's fine, but, you know, curb, gutter, sidewalk, and repaving the streets is important. Because, you know, try going down, Olive Highway at 1:30, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. People are backing up into, you know, on Oro Dam now. They're blocking the intersection. So now we gotta put up signs, do not block intersection, because people don't think about stopping in the intersection.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And then, you know, don't get me started on Olive Highway and Lower Wyandotte by Starbucks. That's a complete disaster. So yeah, it needs work.
I talked about this in Civic 101.
What's that?
I talked about this in Civic
Ladies and gentlemen.
101.
That I missed, yes.
That, you know, imagine being on the East Coast where the roads were built for horse and buggies.
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
they have to deal with that. It's just, you're sort of, this town was built 100 years ago, and so we're working with what we have. And
No, and I understand that. So, I mean, I'm not trying to,
And back when Washington was built, they probably actually thought it was really exciting. Hey, there's a little bit of a park strip here. Hey, we got electric and phone right here in your front yard, and
Well, when
a
it was-
3-foot sidewalk. You know,
Well,
that
when it
was
was
a
first
luxury.
built,
but-
it was never envisioned to be a corridor than
Sure.
it is now. I mean, if you look
Yeah.
at our street layouts,
It
that was not gonna be it.
Oro Quincy down to Bridge Street was the main thoroughfare.
well, I mean, just that little street by Bulldog, or if you try to get across it, it's hard. With the cars coming across that bridge right there,
Yeah.
just like playing Frogger. I mean, it's hard.
Well, you have to take Bird Street all the way, Washington?
Yeah.
Trying to get out.
Exactly.
So,
This is our first step in a very, obviously, it's a long process. But I think that's a great step. Go ahead, you had a question?
So we've talked a little bit about Washington, a little bit about Table Mountain. I also mentioned that there are some ideas for Montgomery as well.
By St. Thomas.
You have more comments?
No, is it by St. Thomas?
Montgomery?
That map, is it first in Montgomery, is that where like St. Thomas?
This. I've
Yeah,
gotta-
which one?
I've
It
gotta
is.
Reduce the size of it.
Okay, now scroll down with the little thing right here. Oh, usually that works.
the back of it, you know, their playground
Yeah, the playground.
and that little rental they have on the corner.
They have it.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if we can make it look like this little illustration down in the right corner, that'd be awesome.
I love the bulb outs.
I do. I do.
We need them at every single intersection on Montgomery.
So, again, so let's go back to some of the concerns on Washington. So there'll be some potentially on-street parking lost here too, for the same reason for what's gonna happen up on Washington, is after the first of the year, you can't park within 20 feet of a corner, which I think it's needed. It's, I don't even know if 20 feet, to be honest with you, is big enough, because a child, even an adult with a stroller, with dogs, if they're walking behind a pickup truck, you're still not gonna see them. So it's, yeah. So this right here is some conceptual designs that we're looking at. Most of this is paint, though. This is not hardscape. And part of this, we want to try it out. It's kind of a test project. We're looking at doing a slurry project on Montgomery, and we want to try it with striping to see how it looks and how it plays out. Again, it's going to give the visuals of things are kind of necking down, and it helps slow down. That's one alternative. The current lanes are about 14 feet wide. We want to neck them down to about 11, which is the appropriate size for the speed of the road. Again, you're coming down a long straightaway. It's kind of dark. It's kind of it's with the trees. It gives you this kind of tunnel vision. with these painting, with the bulb outs and these new higher visibility, thermoplastic, which I'm a big fan of, reflectivity, glass fines in the paint, it makes these things jump out at night. So it gives the visual that the road's necking down and it makes you slow down. It causes a little pause to slow down. This is going to be a great potential project as well. We're kind of excited about this too. This is a conceptual drawing, and I think some of this came from this commission I'm standing in front of right now. So this is the direction we'd like to go on these as well. So any
very
questions? It's this one?
Very excited about this.
Yeah,
I think this is
exactly.
a great way to go. Yeah, the point being that I think we need to think of Montgomery as our main traffic corridor in the downtown residential area. It's what connects the freeway to downtown. It's where we want to bring people in to our downtown area to come shop, spend money. And, because all of the other parallel corridors are less developed and much more more residential, definitely. And, we wanted to, but we see the need to calm traffic on Montgomery because people do speed through there. So there's no stop signs, there's no nothing. It's just, and, I would prefer to see this kind of calming rather than just put up a bunch of stop signs, which is what everybody's, first impact is, or first response is going to be, because that's just going to encourage people to go and do the same thing with Bird or Robinson or some other parallel street that's even less appropriate to be speeding on. So I like this direction a lot.
Agreed. I think with the series of stop signs too, you're going to get a lot of hard braking coming up to them and a hard acceleration taking off on them. And it's just,
Yeah.
I don't think it'll get the desired effect. So I think with the striping, with the new surfacing of the slurry out there, it's going to be visually a lot more pleasing. And especially with the thermoplastic, because that road's a little dark with the mature trees. And you're right, it's the showcase road to come in. First impression of Oroville, when you go down Montgomery, it's like, wow, you got the lot home, you
nice.
got all these beautiful homes, and then you pull into this beautiful downtown. It's the appropriate place you want the tourists to come see, because you can see the levee over there, they're close to the river, and it's an impressive street. And we think these are good enhancements for it.
Do you know the effectiveness of doing the bulb outs and all of this type of painting in other cities? Like, does it really actually slow people down?
I do believe there is studies out there. I don't have that data with me, but there's data out there to support it for sure. Because there's a lot of cities all across, it's big in Europe. It's catching on here. It's becoming more and more
You have to
popular
keep the
here as
paint
well.
up. And then what
Yes.
about lighting? We don't really have very good lighting
Well,
on
there is
Montgomery
street
at
lighting
all.
out there, but a lot of it gets sucked up from all the mature trees out there. It makes it darker. Downtown Sacramento is another great example. There's a lot of good street lighting down there, but you got all these old 100-year-old sycamores and walnuts and all these different types of trees, conifers and redwoods, or some type of a cedar. They pull a lot of the light out.
Well, this is at first. Are you proposing this for all the,
That's what we're looking at, to bring it all the way down to
so
the
people
commercial.
won't be tempted to park there?
Yeah.
in
We
the
want to
corners and
discourage
will be
the
able to
parking on the
see.
corners as
Right.
well, because it's difficult, especially at night. It's
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not great.
The current,
Anytime.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
7:30 in the
I-
morning, I
you're right.
can't see. Right.
now the current plan is doing this treatment from where to where?
I believe this is going to start just west or east of Feather River and bring it up to right about here to Pine Street. So
Okay. Because
that's what we're
I'd
looking
like
at.
to see it go all the way to the roundabout myself.
Because they speed through town, too.
Yes.
I mean, they race. I think also because we don't have enough policemen that have time to sit on the corners like they used to do when I was young, so they just race on Montgomery and Bird.
One of the advantages of these bulb outs that I'd heard as well is that if you're a pedestrian or somebody in a wheelchair,
right.
you're actually going to step out farther than
Yes.
the normal curve so that you can more easily be seen by the
Exactly.
traffic.
Thank you, Wes. That's a very
Yeah.
important point that I was missing, so thank
Yeah.
you. I appreciate that.
And there's less distance to travel across
Right.
the traffic way
There
too,
is.
so you can
Right.
get through it quicker
Yeah.
and
It
less
favors
conflict.
people.
Exactly.
It limits the cars.
I think to speak to some of the downtown corridor is because we have some of these cobblestone or the paver crosswalks.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll look into that a little bit more, but from my understanding, it was up to Pine Street. So
It would be good for the business district if they
It-
would
it would.
slow down.
it would. I got some more plans that I'm thinking in my head for roads and that type of thing. I've only been here 7 months, guys, so, you know, been here about 2 weeks longer than Pat, so, you know,
Oh, I know-
there's
I know some-
multiple large projects going on.
I know some
so.
of us on commission we could have all-day meetings about ideas on.
Exactly,
thing,
and there's so much money as well. So again, to kind of put a little fine point on it, if we want to, what makes Oroville very competitive, so you guys know too, the CTC, California Transportation Commission, they actually did a tour of Northern California, and they were out looking at other potential ATP grant cities that are planning on applying to do things. And what makes us really competitive and what made them excited about this project is for everything we already mentioned. There's no connectivity north to south, and there's only one place to do that. We check a lot of boxes that there's serious improvements that are needed. We're disadvantaged economically here, and the state looks favorably to actually give cities like us money and give us a little bit of the edge. Not saying we have the edge. We have to write a very powerful narrative and support it with a lot of data, but it should be a very competitive project, and it'll transform this place. I strongly believe that. It's something that the city's never had, and I think the city deserves it, to be honest with you. The citizens deserve something very, very nice. And I want the best way to get us in off these corridors into the downtown and out to 162, so.
I've recently seen articles about a city of Chico working with Caltrans to get a pedestrian bridge over 99.
Yes,
And I really think there needs to be pedestrian access along Highway 70 at the Fifth River. There's a lot of people, we can't cross the river except for Washington and Oro Dam. So I think that area really needs a crossing.
Talking about a pedestrian crossing of the river around where Highway 70 is?
Yeah,
Is what you mean?
yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Yeah, because they do it.
That would be nice.
I mean,
Yeah.
you'd have to work with Caltrans. If you could get the bike lane in the Caltrans right-of-ways, because purchasing right-of-way is out of the question.
agreed.
But,
And that would be a perfect, potentially, that could be a good candidate for what we're trying to do with
Mm-hmm.
Washington. That's an ATP grant and funding. That's the kind of funding that you need and the backing that you need to get something like that to happen.
and that would bring people to our, what do we call it now? Our Welcome to Oroville, our
Gateway.
Gateway project. But
Right, which is an exciting
That ever
project too.
happens.
so.
Yes, so this is all one grant. You ask for all of this at one grant, or?
So we're currently we're kind of working through that on the project. So I
Okay.
think we're kind of landing on making this one project with multiple phases in it to make it a very competitive. Because writing these applications, especially with experts and engineering teams that know how to do these and make them very competitive, are very expensive, extremely expensive. And so we're trying to figure out the best use of city money to make sure we get the best application that makes us the most competitive. So even if we weren't awarded this ATP grant in cycle 7, which would be a real blow to me because we're putting a lot of effort and energy into this, I don't say when we get the grant, because I've got to believe that way. There's no other way to win. It gives us a lot of data. It puts us in a much better position than we currently are for other ATP grant applications, which will be in 2 years. So these things only every couple years. There's a certain pot of money. Like I started alluding to earlier, we're competing against all the big cities. Santa Cruz, San Francisco, San Jose, Los Angeles. They all have their own ATP projects. And this is a really great project. And again, it checks a lot of boxes for what they want to look at. And we get a little bit extra, hopefully a little bit more acknowledgement and a serious look because we are economically disadvantaged. We are a rural urban city that doesn't have real connectivity for the mode shift transportation that the state of California is really pushing. So that really helps us move this along and to make it competitive. So that's what I got.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, thank you. Good information.
I got one other thing I just wanted to acknowledge too. In these workshops that we're doing, all the doors I knocked on, everybody I talked to, when we're talking to them in the workshops too, and I want you guys to know this too, my stated position on this is these are conceptual drawings. These are conceptual designs. We want to hear what you like about it, more importantly, what you hate about it, what you don't see it's in it, and what you'd like to see in it. And we're trying to be very consensus building, right? There's constraints what we can do within the right-of-way, but we're really trying to actively hear what the community actually says. We're not doing this from the top down. It's like, this is what we're gonna do, and you're gonna like it. No, we're giving folks opportunities to actually, to voice their opinions. And I think that makes us a little bit more competitive, and a little more open maybe than other cities as well, so. And it takes a lot of footwork, so.
I do love the recommended ones, and I'm assuming that's what you're saying you guys think is the best option.
Yes,
Because I love it. The tree in the middle,
yes.
the wider, I think that's great.
Even just having smooth sidewalks. These streets with strollers, not fun.
They're terrible, yeah.
Rollers and wheelchairs and just,
Exactly.
yes.
And they're narrow, and if somebody's
Yes.
coming the other way with a stroller or a big dog, yeah.
If you have a big stroller, it's like, fit around it, yeah.
Exactly. Now you're going to somebody's front yard, or worst of all, you're going out into the street, so. Okay, thanks, folks. Appreciate it. And I hear what you're saying, and we'll work on some other ideas, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2.
There's another
Is
part
Warren-
of
is Warren
this
doing something?
that Commissioner Jensen had put together some information and some thoughts on the bicycle lanes and had shared that with staff in the past and a couple commissioners. I don't know how much presentation you'd like to make right now, but
Well,
we have
I
that
c-
slide.
Yeah, I can present what's going on, what my thoughts are that are kind of in addition to, well, at this point, it's in addition to what Fred and his team are planning. So I put together a presentation. Originally, this was put together back in September of last year, before I knew anything about the ideas for Washington Avenue or Table Mountain, that those were things that were being developed here at staff. I had just made was just making observations. I was, I'm still, one of the new guys here at the Planning Commission, and just thinking about, ways that we can, make improvements to the city and make life more livable here, particularly for people who might struggle with affordability, a struggle to afford to drive. I didn't come here saying that, I'm going to come in and champion putting in a bunch of bike lanes or anything. That was never my thought. It's something that that came to me as in the work here. And when I put this together, I was intending this to be kind of the first introduction to talking about bike infrastructure. So a lot of the introduction is justification for why we should be talking about this. And I don't think we need to go over any of that part right now. I think we know why we're talking about it. We're already started the conversation. I put in the map of the bicycle transportation plan from the general plan, which
Love
was
it.
basically a big spaghetti bowl of lines on just about every corridor in the city, and it was
Has a bike
going from nothing to this. How do you, even if this is the goal, how do you get there from where we were? And there really was no plan, nothing in the general plan or anything that I could find that really connects how do we get from where we are to anything like this. And so that's just part of the justification for starting that conversation. So go ahead and go to that map right there. So this, this is the old one. Is this the old presentation of mine, or is this the updated one? Because this is the older map. No. I must not have replaced this graphic in here, because I had put in the proposed corridor for Washington and Table Mountain in this one as well. In my current one, I must not have replaced the image. So, yeah, go ahead and go back to that.
Is this the one
map
you were
before.
talking about?
No, I was talking about the one that was on the screen at the time. That one right there. So I just did my own survey around town and mapped out where we had bicycle infrastructure, or even just functional bike lanes. A corridor where we have a white sideline and some road where a bicycle could go, even if it's not marked as a bike lane. But still, it's just a hodgepodge. It's like you take a few strands of spaghetti, drop them on the ground, and say, "Oh, that looks like our bicycle infrastructure map." It was very disjointed, and so the conceptual thought behind this, if we go to the next map, is that, bicycle transportation is ideal for trips that are roughly, 1/2 mile to 2 miles. Too far away that you're going to walk regularly, but not so far away that riding a bicycle becomes arduous. If you're doing it too many times, you're going to prefer to drive. Generally, that's kind of the key distance target that you want. And I was using this also as a way to try and encourage visitation downtown. I'm also on the board for the Oroville State Theater, trying to figure out ways we can bring more people downtown to shop, enjoy, or just hang out and enjoy the beautiful scenery that we have downtown. And to come downtown to see a movie or to do most of the things you do downtown, coming by bicycle would be a great option. And the idea here conceptually is to take our key residential areas that are around downtown, and I think they could be grouped into these 4 general areas, and have this conceptual mode where where we link them all to downtown, and again conceptually this kind of have this trunk pattern of bicycle lanes that we could start with and then build off of as we go. So if you go to the next slide, so this is more turning that concept into an idea on the ground, where the red solid lines are essentially my idea for the trunk lines and where they would go. I think it would be really cool if we could do something multimodal in downtown where we almost dedicate Bird Street as with this, what do you call it? You called it bidirectional bicycle lane down Bird Street. Again, we're dealing with the same issues that we did on Washington Avenue, narrow corridors. How do we make this work? And the idea is to bring, I think our bicycle trunk line should be on a road that's not our traffic trunk line, not on Montgomery. And the advantage of using Bird is that it's more of a residential street. It would turn Bird Street into more of a residential street instead of a throughway that it kind of is right now. People will speed up and down Bird Street just like they do Montgomery, and I'd like to use this as a way to, is to calm that, is to stop that. So using Bird Street to link the downtown residential into downtown, going as the cursor is going up to link to some different ways that it could go up the hill into the residential up the hill, going up Table Mountain, which matches the plan that Fred has and his team has. And then also having a corridor that comes down from downtown. Right now it's, this line, the solid red line is going down Huntoon and into Lincoln. Don't know if that's the best idea, but that's just kind of my best idea right now. Again, making that whole network a bidirectional bike lane, something that's separated from the main traffic that would be going through Oroville, something that's safe to use, inviting to use, and really encourage people to ride their bicycles. It's healthier, it promotes community, and I think it could be a really good development arc for our city. Anything else I want to say about this? Since my original presentation, I had amended this map, and this is the amended map. The line that goes down Bird Street actually ends at 4th Street, where it actually arcs going north and south. And the reason that I would choose 4th Street as a proposal is, one, is we could connect it to Bedrock Park easily, because one of the questions that I had in my original drawing is, I'd like to be able to connect to Riverbend Park, but how the heck do you do that over Highway 70, around Montgomery and the underpass? I didn't know. It might be a good idea to just have the bike path go up to Bedrock Park and then use the existing Class 1 bike path around to access to Bedrock. Plus, on the same street, going south from Bird Street, it connects right into right into Playtown Park and where the all the ball fields and such are. So I think that might be a really good idea. The idea here again, it's connecting people to where they might want to go using a bicycle, which includes parks, includes schools, and that target distance of half a mile to 2 miles. I welcome conversation, welcome input, feedback from staff, from other commissioners. And it really, this is an attempt to address, I think, the bicycle infrastructure that I think the city really needs. And I am in favor of the improvements on on Washington Avenue, in large part because, yes, I recognize that we need to rebuild that, rebuild the pavement on that corridor, and the way to get it funded is to include a bicycle lane down Washington. That's all fine and dandy. I don't think that would be used as much as the bicycle lanes that would be built to get people in and through downtown. I think those are the ones that people would. Those are the ones I think meet more of our city's needs than Washington Avenue per se. But I understand why we're doing Washington Avenue, and I totally support that. So,
I agree. I haven't rode a bike for a long time, but when I did, it was usually to get to a downtown event because your parking's difficult. So if you could ride your bike to a downtown event, so bike paths leading to downtown was what I used them for.
I included some pictures of conceptual designs of what I was thinking of this, this bidirectional bike lane kind of on the side of the road. I didn't see a picture of something that I would envision for something like a Bird Street, which, we would have to make Bird Street one way in order to really make this happen. And so I ended up adding this final page. I am not an artist. This is a very rough drawing. This is the best I could do on my pen in an afternoon on a sheet of paper, scan it, and plop it in here. But the idea is that there's enough right of way, I believe, and that engineering would have to confirm this for me. And I should have marked this a little bit better. But if I go from right to left, what we have is the sidewalk. All right, yeah, from right to left. Your right, I think, might be our left, but the sidewalk, and then a landscaped separator, and then parking, and then one lane of a traffic way that should be 20 feet, which is, I think, what's required for fire, correct? And then another parking. We want to preserve parking on Bird because there are a lot of older homes on Bird that don't have their own parking. We have to preserve parking in here if we were to make this work. So parking on both sides, and then we have that protected. Parkway strip? Yeah, it wouldn't be a park strip, but you would have a protected bidirectional bike lane at that point, protected in that it's separated by, 3 feet or so with stripe, like what we're planning for Montgomery Street.
Like on this page.
Yes, thank you. Without those plastic things sticking up, because I know in this town, people are going to beat those down and take them out, then they're going to look like crap. Let's not do that.
Ever caught one pedaling your bicycle? It hurts.
I could imagine. No, basically this is something we could do with just paint. Well, that was going to be my original proposal if Bird Street didn't need to be completely resurfaced. And I recognize that some of these corridors really should be resurfaced before they get to this point. And that's why it's an idea I want us to talk about. So, I believe that we have the spacing on Bird Street to do this, and I would ask if we could have confirmation from engineering if that was the case. But
Warren, this This is the thing that I was talking about too in the Civic 101 when I was comparing the streets. So Table Mountain isn't in too bad of shape, so, it doesn't really require a whole lot, but Bird Street is a near wholesale replacement.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
Right, so you're pulling out the asphalt, you're packing back in soil. So for the amount of distance you can do on a street, say like Table Mountain, you can't go very far for that same amount on Bird Street. So this is a whole other thing. So it's good to start to think about these things now and put plans in action. Fred's
Yeah.
working on a pavement management plan. And he's getting a software that'll help him, manage and determine how and when to replace things and.
Yeah,
stuff like
I
that.
think I recognize now more than when I started the project that we would need an ATP grant in order to implement a lot of what I'm proposing here.
I'd like to add on to that as well, Bird Street, in certain parts of Bird Street.
Could you go to the mic, because there's a lot of people listening. Sorry.
I just want to add to what you're saying about Bird Street with if we go in there and start grinding and replacing asphalt, everything that's not to compliance with ADA would take effect. And that exponentially doubles, triples potentially a project budget because those corners become very expensive. And if you're doing every intersection,
Every driveway would probably be out of code too.
they won't meet an ADA, you start touching asphalt, it gets very complicated, especially in these older historic areas. So I just want everybody to be present in mind of that. It's something that I have to think about on a regular basis. And, thank you for bringing up the PMP. That bid actually closes tomorrow. So hopefully we're going to get some good competition there. We're going to get a good bona fide report card on the condition of our streets. So I just wanted to add that piece about the older area.
What about Safe Routes to School grants? Is the state doing that?
There is some. So, you mentioned Ishii earlier.
Yeah, I really think between the high school and Ishii, I see a lot of kids walking in the dirt in
So
the
the
street.
city actually partnered with the schools, I think, 2 years ago, and that's an ATP grant. We weren't selected on it. It was not a good, it could have been a better written grant. I believe the school's actually going for the Safe Route to School for an ATP grant in this cycle as well. Last conversation I had with the school district, they were working with BCAG to see if they could potentially find an outfit that could actually write a good narrative for them and help them fill out the application. They wanted us to partner, but we're in this, and I have one engineer, so we don't have the bandwidth to try to take on two different large projects like that. So I agree, Ishii Hills is an important one, and I do believe this school is actually actively pursuing it. But I'm not in the school district, so I don't want to commit them to something that they might not be able to pull off themselves.
Yeah, I'm, just for your information, I've been with the county public works for 26 years. I do all land surveying outdoors.
Okay.
So I've done a lot of Safe Route to School projects.
Sure. Great.
Las Plumas, Lincoln, lots and lots. But
Fantastic.
we haven't. I don't think we've seen a school actually take one on yet. Usually it's us, but we have a lot larger staff.
Yes.
I know how much money that could burn before you even apply for the grant.
Exactly. Exactly. I'm going through that realization myself right now because, again, we have enough projects to keep 3 engineers full-time busy. I've got one. And it's difficult.
Down the road, and so the kids are walking
Well, the school,
on foothill.
The school probably shouldn't have been allowed to be built without that
Having those
being there.
sidewalks
But they
or
said
having-
no kids will ever walk to school, and that's,
Well, now with those
Yeah, they
apartments,
do.
I'm going to remove myself with that part of
Yeah.
the conversation.
well, with the apartments being there so close by, it would make sense to have
What city got the
sidewalks.
last grant? Was a winner?
There are probably multiple, right?
Multiple, because it's based on project size,
Most recent.
money. I believe Paradise did really well. They got 2 or 3 ATP grants over the last.
That was after the fire? Okay, what about prior?
That's what I'm hoping for too. So that's what I'm pushing for. I don't know that answer for locally.
They put out a bucket of money, so it's not just one city gets it in the whole state. There's multiple cities that'll get those, and they'll put out, I don't know, $200, $300 million or something like that, and then they divvy it out. How
Well, I'm
much?
just saying we should have the people who won write our grant,
Well,
right?
Well,
Well, I can work on, I can address that a little bit. So the folks that we're looking for, that we're trying to contract with, they have been very successful with ATP contracts, and they've won several in recent years. That's why we're going with them. So
As
we
a-
want to be hyper competitive with this. In the old days with the CTC on the scoring on these ATP contracts, 90, 92 is a really good number, but things are becoming more competitive. You need a 95, 96 to even really be seriously looked at. So it's becoming more and more competitive. And with the current state, with the state budget, some say 38 billion, some say a lot more, we don't know. The money is pretty much guaranteed from what I understand for this ATP cycle, but we don't know what's coming in 2 years. So that gives them more of an urgency for folks to really up their game on the ATP grants and the applications. So,
That's good.
yeah,
Hope we do well.
yeah. And we're always looking for letters of support too. So really working actively with the community, city council, you guys. So
Do you need letters of support from us individually? Or are you that's something, you need- if we need
we'll
that.
take them all. We'll take
that's-
everything we
Yeah,
get.
ask for that. That's.
Okay, I'm asking.
Okay.
Yes, please. It's important. Yes, over to the city, yes.
But we write it to the city.
Yes,
Do you have a template?
I do not.
Well, it's once we have the contractor in place who's going to write the grant, then there's a point where they'll be reaching out for, I mean, they'll reach out to everybody, the assembly member, the senator, the congressman.
Let us know then, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, or-
they'll go after, all of you guys, the council members, the county administrator, the county, what do they have up there, the board?
Board supervisor.
Yeah, so they'll be looking at the school districts, they'll be gathering letters from everybody they can.
We're trying to work on that now too, at a grassroots level by knocking on 300 doors. I felt like I was running for local office.
Those are
Which I'm
pretty
not.
easy to
Thank
get.
God that's
I mean,
not
like,
us.
You get your template and you send them out. You have to bug them a couple times, but you usually get all the letters you want.
Exactly. So we encourage letters, so.
I think one from the planning commission might be an interesting perspective and have a lot of good arguments to make,
Yes.
yeah.
I agree. As long as they're nice comments.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I appreciate everybody's time and ear. I'm hoping that this is either the start or the continuation of a discussion to bring additional bicycle infrastructure into the city.
Yeah, thank you for doing it. I love it. You're right. Because you can't, there's no parking.
Yeah, you have, Warren and Natalie, with your first meeting or two with the staff, have generated some really good, I'll call it ideating and cogitating on this. So that I'm grateful for you.
Thank you, Wes.
Folks taking the initiative.
We got such wonderful weather in the summertime.
Across the street.
Walk in July, it's nice.
Yeah.
Are we ready for item 2?
Connor, can you share your screen?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you'll stop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred.
I'm still showing you as an attendee. We'll just simply click the next to it. To panelist.
So item 2 will be presented by Connor remotely. And you'll be sharing your screen, Connor?
Yes, that's me. Let me get it going. Okay, so this is a kind of just a discussion for us with our sign code, and hopefully this presentation and the staff report will kind of serve as a launching pad to get some direction from the Planning Commission as to what they want to see and where we want to go with this, if anywhere. So to start, we'll go over some of the history of our sign code ordinance. So some of you who were on the commission may remember, but in 2016, they started, as staff at that time, a sign code update. However, staffing changes, economic circumstances, the update fell by the wayside and wasn't picked up again until 2020 when new staff came in to get this ball moving forward. Multiple planning commission workshops were held throughout 2020. I believe there were a total of 4 workshops. And key changes included new maintenance provisions, square footage and height changes, design requirements, new sign criteria, new sign types, a bunch of different regulations. And so the sign code update was adopted by the City Council on June 15th, 2021. There was a slight typo. I was off by a day in your staff report, but June 15th, 2021, under Ordinance 1849. So history behind this, the previous regulations, and really this conversation is going to focus in on our freestanding signs and our freeway-oriented signs. That is a sign type that we've run into some issues with, and we'll talk about a little bit further here. But the height requirements were still 8 feet a few years ago. The previous sign code allowed 40 feet if they were freeway-oriented, contiguous to State Route 162, or if the property was zoned C1 or MXD. 60 feet was allowed within a quarter mile of a freeway exit ramp with the Planning Commission approval and a balloon test and visibility things. So square footage requirements did not change. They're the same as they were in the past. So 100 square feet per side. It depends on your street frontage. So long as the site does not exceed the maximum total area for all signs. Some differences back then, we didn't have any design requirements, so cladding or skirting was not required and landscaping was not required at the base. So these terms are often used interchangeably, but freestanding signs kind of go in line with the pole sign. But a freestanding sign is one or more poles, braces, or similar structures. A pole sign is a single pole supporting the sign. And then a freeway-oriented sign is a sign for a freeway-oriented business designed to be visible from the freeway on which the business depends. Personally, this definition could use some work because our general plan only identifies one freeway in the city, and that is State Route 70. State Route 162 is not a freeway, so really it should probably just say State Route 70. So for some examples of this, the left side here with Walmart, that is an example of a freestanding sign. The middle one here with Starbucks is an example of a pole sign. And then this Feather River Crossing sign on the right is an example of a freeway-oriented sign. I put an asterisk here because all of these signs were permitted under the previous sign code. The current regulations are pretty similar to what was previously allowed, but the biggest change here is 40 feet was allowed if the property was abutting State Route 162. It was allowed to go up to 85 feet if it was abutting State Route 162 and within a quarter mile of State Route 70. Essentially, this change legalized all of the existing tall signs that we see at the 70-162 interchange with the Feather River Crossings, Maverick, Starbucks, McDonald's, all of those signs we see there are now legal signs within our sign code. Square footage requirements stayed the same, but we added a design requirement for cladding or skirting should be provided so as to not leave an exposed pole. That supports our general plan policies with our design guidelines, supporting high quality design of signage, and landscaping was required to be provided at the base of the sign, equal to twice the area of one face of the sign. So that was to soften the appearance of the area. So what this looks like is, you can see here with A1 appliances, it's a pretty nice sign, but there's no landscaping at the base. It's not very attractive. It's a pretty harsh environment. You can see here in the middle sign here with the liquor store on Oro Dam, there's no sign pole, there's no landscaping at the base. It's not really an attractive looking sign. And then the best example I could find is the Oroville Hospital Clinic on 5th and Oro Dam. It's a mostly compliant sign. It meets the height requirements of a freestanding sign. It doesn't exceed 8 feet. The landscaping is pretty deficient at the base, but it looks like some road work was going on in the area. But this is kind of an example of what we were going for. So the reason, the catalyst for all of this is we do have 2 pending variance applications. One is for the brand new Tractor Supply at 2580 Feather River Boulevard, and the other one is for the Chevron Starbucks at 2030, 2040 3rd Street. These variance applications seek to exceed the maximum allowed height for freestanding signs, exceed the maximum allowed square footage for freestanding signs, exceed the maximum allowed square footage of all signs on a property, and reduce or waive landscaping requirements at the base of the support structure. And you can see here on the side, these are the applications that are currently in process and what they look like. So the Tractor Supply sign is at 30 feet in height, and then the Chevron Starbucks sign is proposed at 70 feet in height. Variances have a high legal standard in order to be approved. Staff did meet with our city attorney. 6 findings must be made, and those must be based on substantial evidence. All 6 findings must be made in order for a variance to be approved. This includes findings of exceptional or extraordinary circumstances and no granting of special privileges to the property. Non-conforming signs cannot be utilized to justify the approval of a variance unless there is a legal vested right for such a use to exist. Said non-conforming signs are regulated by the non-conforming regulations of the sign code and only allowed to exist until such time that they must be brought into compliance with the current sign regulations. So that until such time is if more than 50% of the sign structure is demolished, if the business that is advertising is abandoned for a period of 2 years, and I believe there's one more in there that I just cannot quite remember. So I kind of want to go through an example here. This is with local city, California. It's not a real place, but they previously allowed buildings to be constructed with 0 setbacks and 5 stories, which created a downtown area with structures of this nature. Local city updated their zoning code, requires development to have a 10-foot setback and limits height to 3 stories. An application is filed to develop a property with a 0 setback and 4 stories, much like what was previously allowed and now considered legal non-conforming. The food for thought for you guys is, would findings for the approval of a variance in this circumstance be possible? Is there a hardship on this property? Is there a reason why, special privilege, something? All of these other structures are non-conforming. Would we apply this same rationale to a 5-story building as we would to a sign that's being proposed? So to get the ball rolling here, I did some comparisons of our neighboring jurisdictions with their freestanding signs and freeway signs. So we have the County of Butte, Town of Paradise, Gridley, Chico, and then I threw in Redding in there. So you can see Butte County has a freestanding sign. 12 feet is their height limit. 8 feet, freestanding sign 64 square feet. They do have freeway-oriented signs in there for 40 feet, and then some larger square footages for that type of sign. Town of Paradise, granted it's not located along a freeway, but 16 feet, depends on your zoning district. So if you're within a scenic overlay, things like that, it's less, and then up to 100 square feet, similar to what we have. Gridley, something to note, pole signs are completely prohibited in the city. Everything is classified as a monument sign. So what does that mean? Is there is requirements to have cladding and skirting and kind of an attractive design to that. And that could go up to 12 feet for abutting State Route 99. Slightly different circumstances with Gridley in that the freeway or the highway runs right through town. They don't have to deal with the elevation differences, topography, landscaping, things like that. Chico is probably as terrible as it is to say, they're probably our best comparison here. They allow up to 25 feet for their heavy commercial and industrial districts with 100 square feet per sign face. So that's a little bit higher. They do allow the director or the zoning administrator through a zoning administrator hearing and a master sign program to grant exceptions to the sign code. But typically with the master sign program, you receive a comprehensive design of all signage on the property. You have high quality designs with it and much more regulations associated with that. And then City of Redding, they have, again, 2 classifications, freestanding and freeway. So they allow up to 25 feet, 35 feet with a zoning exception. Square footage depends on the zoning district. Freeway signs are allowed up to 60 feet and then 70 feet if visibility needs warrant an increased height, and then up to 400 square feet in sign face, depending on, again, the frontage, zoning district, things like that. So just running through some photos here of what we want to see. You see the big picture is what Oroville looks like now from State Route 70 and 162. You can see our proliferation of tall signs within our main commercial area. On the left side here, top left, you see the Chico Marketplace. This is probably the tallest legally created sign that is not considered to be legal non-conforming. They do have a 100-foot tall McDonald's sign that is not permitted by their existing zoning code and would likely be considered a legal non-conforming sign. But you can see here, Chico Marketplace, this was approved as part of a comprehensive sign program regulating all of the signage at the Chico Marketplace. This bottom left picture, it's not very impressive, but this is the City of Redding at their main mall area with the interchange of 5 and whatever the other freeway is up there. You can see they actually don't have any tall signs in that area, despite their zoning code regulations allowing signs of that nature to exist. This picture here, this large one is in Vacaville on I-80. You have the Nut Tree Plaza. You can see these are pretty high quality design signs. They're pretty tall, probably around 65 up to 80 feet. And then you see in the distance there another one of the older signs, but it's still clouded and looks nice. This top left one is the Irvine Spectrum Center down the street from me, and it's a very large sign. It's the only kind in Irvine, but they have a large advertising digital display sign on that. That's something that our code is kind of silent on right now. That's up for discussion here tonight if we want to have that. And then this bottom left one is the Tustin Marketplace up the street on the 5 from me here in Orange County. And these are their freeway-oriented signs along I-5. So bunch of different routes to go with this. This is kind of just trying to launch the ball and see the direction of the Planning Commission. What route do you want staff to take this, and what do you want this to look like? So I'll leave it up to discussion and field any questions that you guys may have.
So just to sort of set some of the questions that we hope to get addressed or discussed tonight, are highway-oriented businesses entitled to have freeway-oriented signs in Oroville? And to what extent? How many signs along 70 and where should they be allowed? At the interchanges only with 70, or within a certain number of feet with 70? I think one of those codes in Connor's packet allows freeway-oriented signs if the property is within 800 feet of a freeway. And then another question is, what are the heights of signs to be allowed on Highway 70 and other locations? And would 60 feet be a maximum unless a balloon test shows it? So these are some of the discussion items that we'd like to have the Planning Commission weigh in on. And we also have several commenters on Zoom that would also like to contribute. So it's up to the chair how you want to lead this discussion.
Just prefer to hear the commenters, kind of like we do now.
Yeah.
All right, Bradley, you're up.
Hi, can you hear me? Hello, thank you, Planning Commission, for allowing me to speak, and staff. I am the developer owner of the new Tractor Supply that's going in on Feather River Boulevard, next to the existing Taco Bell that I'm probably sure you're all familiar with. We've been building for several months now, and we plan on opening that store on May 3rd. So we're very excited to be building this new store. Tractor's very excited, and anyway, it's going to be a great new addition to Oroville. Even though it's a relocation, it's going to really be a terrific store. I'm here tonight because I was under the impression, and we have applied for a variance because the current sign code in the city's thinking prohibits us from having any sign taller than 8 feet, even though we back up to Highway 70. Now, we don't interpret the city code the same way the city interprets their code. And in our opinion, the code reads that any property within a quarter-mile distance of SR 70 should be able to have an 85-foot high sign. Now, we're not for a freestanding sign. We're not asking for anything like that. We're asking for I just heard tonight 30 feet. I thought it was 40, but 30 works as a freeway pylon sign, and or pole sign, if you will. I know there's a lot of verbiage and definitions being thrown out here, and so I'll just call it a pole sign because it's a sign supported by a pole. And so we'll leave it at that. And in our case specifically, we filed a variance because, of course, the city believes code to say 8 feet. And in our case, if we put an 8-foot sign in the back of the property, which, as I mentioned, abuts the Highway 70, so we back up to the Caltrans right-of-way and Highway 70. If we put up an 8-foot high sign there, it would not be visible from the highway in either direction, north or south, because of all of the growth that is in the Caltrans right-of-way itself. As we're being shown here with the arrow, as you approach northbound, from, let's say, a little bit further south, there is no growth along the highway there. But as you get closer to the off-ramp, there are a lot of trees and bushes that are growing there, and it completely blocks the back of our property from visibility, which is why 8 feet doesn't work, and a 30-foot high sign, which is pretty typical, anywhere from 30 to 40 feet, I would say, is a pretty typical freeway pole sign. That would work, and we'd be able to have the visibility that, frankly, I expected when I made our initial application to the city. In my description of our use, I said that we would be applying for a monument sign out in the front on Feather River and a 40-foot high freeway pole sign. And somehow that got lost in the process here, and it didn't come up until we made our sign application, and then we were told that we would have to apply for a variance because code didn't allow that. And again, our interpretation of the code is different than the city's interpretation. So having said all of that, we do have an active variance in process. We do meet the requirements for a variance, and we have a unique and special circumstance based on the location of our property and the growth on the Caltrans right-of-way that 8 feet would never work for us. Now, aside from that, talking about the things that you're going to be thinking about with revising your code, hopefully, there's a lot of things to consider here. And I just wanted to mention that the use of the term freestanding sign is a very broad category of signs. And as we were shown in some of these exhibits that were shown, it covers a wide range of signs. And so our monument sign, which is out in front along Feather River, Tractor chose to install an 8-foot high monument sign. I wouldn't have done it that way. I would have had a 4-foot high monument sign, or 5-foot high, or 8-foot high is a pretty tall monument sign. And when you have a one-tenant single property, that's a pretty large sign. Now, when you run into shopping centers, that's a different animal. You're going to have multiple tenants on monument signs, and the sizing of that is really based on, well, how many tenants are you really going to have, and how much signage do you need? So I just like to throw that out there, that the use of the term monument sign is a very different animal than a freestanding sign. And we saw a lot of freestanding signs, and the only sign that I saw close to a monument sign was the Oroville Hospital sign, which is close, but not exactly what I would call a monument sign. The other side of that is the freeway pylon signs that we saw. And I'm using the term now, freeway pylon sign, not pole sign. The freeway pylon signs that we saw are for multiple tenant shopping centers. And those are those big signs that you pointed out. They are massive structures, and they're holding, they contain, in the examples that were used here, 7, 10, 12, 20 tenants. Those are applicable to multi-tenant shopping centers, not a single tenant, one parcel piece of property, such as the Tractor Supply that we're building. That type of sign would never, it would never fit into what we're doing. It's not applicable to a single tenant sign, such as the Taco Bell right next door to us, which I understand, I think is a 60-foot high sign right now. I could be wrong on the height, but for a single tenant on a single piece of land, the freeway pylon sign concept doesn't work for that sort of application. So I just wanted to throw that out as some food for thought on that subject. It's going back to us specifically. We want to push forward with our variance and not get rolled into this bigger plan of trying to determine, how Planning Commission is going to rewrite the sign code in the city. And if that takes a long time, we're going to be without a freeway, without signage on Highway 70, which is critically important to Tractor Supply as a retailer. And we would like to move forward with our variance. I don't mean tonight, obviously, it's not on the agenda, but we would like to move forward with our variance in the near future. And to me, this subject as a whole seems to be a lot longer than a month or two to figure out what you guys might be doing with the City of Oroville signage code or signage regulation. So that's really what I wanted to say for tonight. We appreciate, thank you for giving me the time. And of course, I'm here if you have any questions. And I look forward to getting through and getting Tractor the sign that they need on Highway 70.
Thank you.
So just to clarify, Tractor Supply and the sign would be within a quarter mile of the interchange, but it would not be on Highway 162, which is what the language of the code specifically says.
It's been a long time, but I thought that, you'd have to go, I don't know if the meetings were YouTubed at the time, but it seems like the discussion was a quarter mile from the highway and not specifically 162, because we were talking about other businesses wanting to come in with big signs around Applebee's at the time, and that never materialized. But that was something that was supposed to come up at the time. So I thought that it was all a quarter mile measured east-west from Highway 70.
Which would include then Tractor Supply.
It would.
Under your interpretation, yeah.
Yeah, but that's, quite a while ago that we had discussed that in Planning Commission. Do we have another speaker?
We do have a couple of folks listening that are representing the Chevron and Starbucks sign, but none of them have raised their hands at this point. So, here we go.
Are they is it an applicant or?
This is David Coberly, who has submitted the application for the Chevron sign at Grand and 70. And they have done a balloon test, which Brandon Mata, our intern, and Mark Wolf participated in, and they are proposing a 70-foot high sign at that location where the Chevron is at Grand and 70. Go ahead, Dave.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I'm not sure. I'm getting used to the Zoom process here. Hi, I'm Dave Coberly. I'm with Superior Electrical Advertising. And we are working with Mr. Lally in regards to the Chevron Starbucks project located at the Grand Avenue exit, if I've got that correct, and Highway 70. They currently have at that particular location a 40-foot tall pylon display. It's about 120 square feet. Unfortunately, it cannot be seen from the freeway. It cannot be seen due to the layout of the landscape and a lot of trees that are along the freeway there. If we could get away with a shorter sign and not have to go that high, we'd be much more happy with that. But I did approach Caltrans in regards to removing trees, and I was told that that's not going to happen. We provided what your group calls a balloon test. We call it a flagging. It's all the same. We took a target on mounted on a truck, a man lift, and provided photographs in our package at 3 different heights, 60 feet, which was suggested, and we found that it was close, but you really couldn't see it for a safe exit from the freeway. We also placed it at 85 feet, which was our intention in the original application, and it was clearly visible. However, at 70 feet, the sign was visible for enough time to react and get over to the right side. And this is primarily just for northbound travel. On the southbound travel, there's no real effective visibility of the sign in order to make an exit at the exit to the north of this location. So to react in time. So that was not part of the balloon test. It was primarily focused on northbound travel. And the building next door to Chevron is a new Starbucks with 2 future tenants. They're presently vacant at the time. And we had provided the sign at a larger cabinet display, 14 feet by 16 feet. And we have since then deleted the 2 future tenant signs and just focused on the Chevron and Starbucks. And with that, it ends up about the same square footage as the existing display, but of course moved from 40 foot, which is not visible, up to the 70 foot, which is visible, to mostly visible. So it could be allowed for safe exit off the freeway. And again, to understand, we'd be more than happy to keep it at 40 feet, but if you can't see the darn thing, it doesn't do much good. And with Starbucks moving forward, they're very interested in getting the freeway visibility. We work with them on several locations, and of course the Chevron is there now. So Chevron and Starbucks would be the 2 tenants on this sign. And that's what we're hoping to move forward with. We do have a use permit application in right now that's acting more or less like a variance. And we'd like to also move ahead with that. As the previous gentleman had mentioned, it does take some time to get a sign code changed in a municipality. So hoping for the best on that. And if that can happen, that's great. Any questions on that? Or I know that we had provided some photographs in our sign package. I don't see them here.
I don't
kind of
really-
show which signs were visible at the sign visible at various heights.
We
I don't know if that could
unfortunately
be-
did not bring that exhibit with tonight, but
Okay.
he is correct. Dave is correct. The sign really cannot be effectively seen from the south on the freeway unless it is 70 feet high. So the question is, are they entitled to have one? Other questions, we have had discussions with the Gateway developer who has expressed the intention of putting up a very tall freeway-oriented sign that advertises the gateway once it's finally built, right at the Montgomery interchange there. We have had discussions with potential gas station developers up at Garden and the freeway, which is zoned highway commercial. So gas stations are actually encouraged at that location. And the discussions we've had indicate that the applicants do also want to put up very high gas station signs. So one of the things Connor had mentioned was that some of the codes in these other communities require the sign to be related to a business that depends on freeway-oriented traffic or business. So that's one of the other considerations. So we've thrown a lot at you, and hoping to get input from the Planning Commission this evening.
I have a question. What's the requirement for keeping the sign in good condition? Because you have all these tall signs and then they start falling apart. You know, that is a big, huge thing to start looking not very nice. So how do we enforce that and keep the signs?
Connor, did you want to address that?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, what do we have that requires and guarantees sign maintenance? What's our sanction for that?
Our sign code has quite a few provisions on sign maintenance. Sign faces have to be, readable. They can't have appealing, signage. It has to be, painted in good repair, good condition. The unfortunate part is, signage is a pretty low priority when it comes to enforcement with code enforcement. And we have all the tools in our sign code to enforce provisions for maintenance. We just, as staffed up as we are in code enforcement, we don't still have the staff bandwidth to address those things. And, when it comes to some of those other signs that you see around town, a lot, and in my time that I remember, we have a lot of different signs in Oroville, many different kinds of signs. And in all honesty, most of those probably shouldn't even be there. Most of them are probably illegally erected signs. Most of them probably should have been removed. For example, the Cassidy's Blueberry Twist sign, that was vacant for a period of way beyond 2 years. And that should have been required to have been removed. But unfortunately, it's just a way with, how busy we are and with staff. And I hate to admit that, but we all only have so much bandwidth to address these different things. And when it comes to Bradley's statement with the Tractor Supply, I did look back at that application. It was not processed by me, and it probably wouldn't have gotten through me if it was processed by me. Not to speak highly of myself, but it stresses the importance of, as staff and as Planning Commission, receiving complete applications from our applicants. If you know you're proposing to put up signage, submit your sign plans for review and consideration early on, so we know what we're looking at. And that's just a change moving forward for staff to ensure issues like this do not occur again.
I'll have to take responsibility for that, for suggesting that Tractor Supply submit for a variance, because they are surrounded by a number of other taller signs. And that is before we got the city attorney's opinion that just because those other signs exist under an older sign code does not warrant a variance under the new sign code per se. So that's going to be up to the Planning Commission also.
Connor, did you say that a business that is freeway oriented, or that is seeking business from freeway traffic can have a
Depends
sign
on
at a
it.
certain height?
Depends on it.
That depends
Their
on
business depends on it.
freeway traffic can be a certain height?
Or that a good chunk of their business, comes from
Right.
freeway traffic.
I mean, I don't see Tractor Supply as having a majority of their business coming from someone driving down the road and seeing a sign saying, oh, Tractor Supply, I'm gonna pull over, as they would a Starbucks or a gas station, correct?
You're expressing an opinion, so.
No,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, it's an opinion, but, I mean, I don't know if it's, if that's a deciding factor for allowing a 80-foot sign.
So with that statement, a lot of businesses, when it comes to justifying a variance, utilize an economic hardship. And that statement that I provided in the presentation to you, there is a high legal barrier for approving a variance. And with that, I was reviewing some case law with a case of the business in Los Angeles that sought a variance approval to add auto repair to their gas station. And with that, they stated there was an undue economic hardship because neighboring properties were allowed to have the auto repair. There needs to be included with that concrete economic evidence that states by not having a sign, you are losing out on X amount of dollars, X amount of traffic that will equate to a loss of your business, and that is a hardship. I don't, and personally, I don't know of any circumstance in which that would really be possible because it's a high barrier to prove, and a lot of individual businesses don't have the ability to do so. Our city attorney did provide a example of, in the case of Tractor Supply, if there was a similar business that sold tractors and farm equipment that was allowed to have a 40-foot tall sign immediately next door, that would be basis for justification for approval of a variance because they are being denied that right that a exact same business model was given to have. But Tractor Supply cannot compare themselves to a ice cream parlor that has a 40-foot tall sign. Those are not economic comparables. And so it gets very convoluted and complicated. That's why most cities do not approve variances. And that's why variance applications are pretty much, I wouldn't say looked down upon, but discouraged.
Right. And that's what my question
Can I speak?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Sobel would like to respond if that's okay with you.
If it's quick, this isn't the variance application.
Yeah. Right,
So please make it quick.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say two things. One is that that as stated, that was an opinion on if Tractor Supply is a traffic driver off the freeway that someone driving by sees the tractor sign versus Taco Bell sign, and they say, oh, I'm hungry, let's get a Taco Bell versus, oh, look, there's Tractor Supply. Gee, I need to run in there and buy a plant. That's that's an opinion, but the truth is that over 40% of Tractor's business comes from people who live outside of the city or municipality of where the store is. They pull from 30 to 45 minutes away at a minimum of people who are coming to their store. So it's absolutely necessary that Tractor have a freeway-oriented sign, a pole sign, to let people know where they are. And it's incredibly subjective and opinionate. It's an opinion regarding, does a business need freeway traffic in order to warrant a sign? I don't see how, that's a nightmare. To have a code section that says, well, if you need freeway business, then you can have a sign, but if you don't need it, you don't. Every business needs freeway traffic. So I would not recommend that. The second thing I wanted to make just a quick point out is that we are not asking for a variance because other people have tall signs. We're asking for a variance because no one can see our 8-foot high sign that currently is required by the city's opinion of what their code is. And as stated earlier, yes, we are within a quarter mile of the interchange, and we should be allowed to have up to an 85-foot high sign.
Thank you. Please bring that up in the variance. We're kind of getting into another meeting here.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.
Bradley.
So really to move us in the right track here. Is it the desire of the planning commission to expand that quarter-mile radius and either make it quarter-mile of State Route 70 exits or the entire length of State Route 70? And at what height do you consider to be comfortable as planning commissioners to have?
I'd like to see that paragraph, again, that says the quarter mile and 85-foot sign. Is there one word that's missing?
It's an and, yes, it is.
The one
Yeah.
word is missing.
One word
and-
is missing.
and I thought that was our intent to do the quarter mile for the
For all.
entire city limits. And that would have cleared this entire thing up.
If it's the planning commission's desire, we can certainly make that change at any time.
We're open for discussion, so, but.
Can you,
it's
can you
not just my opinion,
clarify
so-
what you're proposing, or what your perception of the regulation was, and what we might be proposing to direct staff to do
At
now?
the time, I believe there were several businesses along Feather River that were
page is
talking about coming in and putting in tall signs. So I thought that we had made it 85 feet,
Connor's put it on the screen
yeah,
now.
from,
Page is that?
from,
Oh, I took this directly from our code that's adopted. You have it in attachment 1, page something.
the property is within a quarter mile distance.
Sorry, I don't have the packet up in front of me.
For those of us who can't read the screen, can someone read it? Please out loud.
Well, that's the thing, I can't see it. That's
I
why I
have
want
no
the
idea what it
page
says
number.
either.
We can't see it. There we go.
Can't see it
It's-
either.
Okay, thank you. It's got to get bigger.
Can you see it now? Thank you. Yeah, better.
So, there it is, a maximum height. Okay. Oh, so this is just on 162.
That's the way the language reads. That's the way staff is interpreting
Yeah,
that
I think it
language.
should, State Route 70 may be permitted if the property is within a quarter mile distance of 70. And that's what I see. Because there's a period, increased height up to a maximum of 85 feet, comma, may be permitted if the property is within a quarter mile distance of State Route 70. I interpret that to be within a quarter mile of State Route 70.
And that's what you're remembering was the intention when you were making this code?
That's
the
what I
commission.
believe, but that's many years ago. There were many commissioners against tall signs at the time too, but we were getting a lot of variances because they let McDonald's go high.
So you're taking this as on 162,
No,
they
a
they
quarter
shall be
mile-
40 feet.
No, I'm taking a quarter mile from State Route 70 through the entire city limits.
Can be up to a maximum of 85 feet,
Yeah,
all of State Route 70.
all of state, within a quarter mile distance of State Route 70.
Yes, either side.
Makes sense.
Yes.
But a quarter mile is a kind of, that's gonna,
It's wide.
1,300 feet. I don't know the distance between 70 and Feather River Boulevard now. That might be, I mean, that's a
Well,
good 1,000 feet.
I'll tell you, you can see it on the map. This is a quarter mile radius circle around the intersection of 70 and 162.
and it can
So
go
it'd go
on,
just past AMPM then?
like Tractor Supply wants to put theirs on the freeway side, but not
It
everyone.
goes from
has-
70 to Feather River and another half or so.
And I believe at the time Starbucks had to do a variance.
Yes, Starbucks did a variance, and they fell, the corner of the property where they put it in is basically the last part that falls within that quarter mile distance.
So do we need, as commissioners, do we need to look at this a little bit more closely and decide what this actually says before we go too far into this, or?
The text is on page 30 of your
Yeah.
package, number D3.
I mean, I'm not the kind of person who likes to try and analyze things on the fly and in the spotlight, so that's,
I'm okay with tabling this. It's getting late now and.
yeah, because I mean, the bottom line here is that, you know, as a community, as a city, we do rely on people who come into town and spend money.
Freeway.
And there are people who do that on the freeway. People need to be able to see where they can do that if they're passing by on the freeway. And that the signs, they need to be visible, but we need an assurance that there's just not too numerous, correct?
Correct.
General sense?
Yes, we want to support the businesses.
And
Yeah,
because of differing vegetative landscapes, differing topography, the height of signs is going to, the appropriate height of such a sign would vary. So I don't know how to address that in a code.
Without penalizing the people who would have to pay a variance fee because they happen to have
So we
trees
have
in
to
front of them.
So we have
Right.
to decide what is too numerous. And I notice in this freestanding signs portion that there is a thing about 75 feet between two freestanding signs.
Yeah.
I don't know how much that is. I'd have to take a look at that in Google Maps for a while to really get a sense of that. But yeah, with this information, I say we take a closer look, read through this a little bit more closely, and
And Maverick is 85 feet.
Is everybody
So
okay with
Maverick is
tabling this to a,
Could,
what do we need to do?
could I ask if there's any kind of a straw vote or something? Because staff would like to get moving on this,
For the two big existing
updating this
businesses,
ordinance.
to
Whether there's,
what would staff like to do?
well, what kind of empathy there might be for allowing freeway signs all along 70 versus just at intersections. And I'm hearing Commissioner Jensen say that the height should be allowed to vary depending on visibility from 70, which we can, you know, put language in that addresses that so that we
Okay.
don't have to create a bunch of
I
variances.
think we'd like to see that. And then, but it also to Vice Chair Jenkins' point, you know, as I'm reading this, I interpret this to mean within 85 feet with the property within a quarter-mile distance of State Route 70. So it seems pretty open to me.
There shouldn't be a variance.
Yeah,
Well, unfortunately, the wording is that it abuts 162, so that's what we've
That
been-
period doesn't, between the two?
So the first sentence, so regulation number 3, first sentence regulates signs that abut State Route 162. Therefore, any other regulation within that exact regulation number 3 is continuing off of State Route 162. If this were to target a separate regulation up to 85 feet for anything within a quarter mile, that second sentence, it should have been made regulation number 4 and coupled that with regulation number 4 that currently is to make a better argument that makes more sense. And my recollection at that time with the sign code, and again, I prefaced this at our last planning commission meeting, I was a novice little planning intern. There was quite a few differing opinions of where to go with this sign code, where we didn't like the tall signs, but we were trying to allow them, and what was the right height, and where did we want to go, and where to allow them. And ultimately, this is what got adopted by city council.
And here's the thing, you know, now that I understand that this is the issue, I'd like to read through this again and think about what you'd want to do. Because, I mean, is this too lenient? I mean, that's pretty dang lenient.
I know,
If we go-
85 feet
If we
is
go
high.
quarter mile
Yeah.
on each side of the freeway, top to bottom, all the way through town, is it? I don't
We
know.
can't, though. It'll only be on the east side of 70, well, until you get to Grand, because there will be no development on
The river.
There can't be on the west side.
On that section of 70, yeah.
Through the whole city limits, it's either, park, it's all park.
So in my side of things, I've gotten no sleep on this, but I personally have a idea of a route forward where it's more comprehensive than just putting an and or changing a period and things like that. I do enjoy taking this as an opportunity to fix what should have been fixed and, you know, help out our applicants and the city get a good product. And so in reviewing other sign codes, I would encourage and try to differentiate between a multi-tenant freeway-oriented sign, kind of as Brad with Tractor Supply was talking about, a multi-tenant freeway-oriented sign versus a single tenant, because we do have conflicting general plan policies and regulations that state limit the proliferation of single-tenant signs along State Route 70. That was included in your guys' packet. And City of Reading does a good example of two tenants that are not within a common development, but abuts, I believe it's a freeway, may combine those signs to have both of those on a multi-tenant sign, and it would not be classified as an off-premise sign, which triggers a bunch of different regulations. So in my sense, I was trying to target a height of probably around 40 feet without needing to come to Planning Commission, and then increasing it up to 85 feet with the Planning Commission approval of a use permit in this go-around.
When you say this go-around, you mean for the signs that are pending right now, or you're just talking about
No,
upgrading
this
the-
code update. This
Okay.
code update. So we did discuss the variance applications at our development review committee meeting, and my input to our applicants was to place it on hold so we can get this sign code update moving forward. Staff believe we can move pretty quickly on this one. I do not have the bandwidth to process two variance applications, a zoning code update and our Oak Tree ordinance update at the same time. So if these variance applications are put on holds, my focus would be on this sign code update.
I don't want to put them on hold. I feel like these businesses are working hard.
If they did the update, they wouldn't need the variance.
Yeah, if we just update the sign.
So
code
we have to decide
at the
now
next meeting, basically, right?
to make it easier for the applicants.
Well, one of the applicants has said that they'd like to know by the end of April. I don't remember what the other applicant said. The Tractor Supply probably can wait
I think
also
both of them
through
are
April.
okay with it at the
Yeah.
DRC, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a month or
Then it wouldn't slow them
maybe
down.
two in order to iron this out, if you'd like.
I mean, if staff would like to present suggested changes while we are looking through the current ordinance and trying to interpret it, and
Sure,
then that's
we'll do that.
would be acceptable to me.
And as commissioners, you are more than welcome to email me your thoughts. I want to get this going as smooth as possible.
Yeah, because,
So
and I'll say, not having any of the background or introduction to why we're reviewing this, I really didn't know what to review in any of this. So now that I do, now I feel like I know what to review. So,
Yeah, all of Highway 70, up to 85 feet high signs.
And I would argue, I know you say that the freeway traffic necessarily wouldn't stop for Tractor Supply, but since it's relocating, it makes or breaks your decision when you're exiting onto or Dam. You're gonna either make a right or a left. So if you see that sign before you get to the intersection, then you know where to go. You know, for people who maybe weren't aware, I'm just saying. For at least a year or so, a couple years.
And I like about the sharing, tenants sharing the same sign also. It's just tough to get two guys,
Yeah.
that are building at the same time to be able to put a sign up that's gonna hold multiple tenants.
Yep.
The less freeway signs, the better, but, you know, I think, yeah, people should see them before when they have time to get in the off-ramp.
I mean, how difficult is it to have these, I mean, you see signs on the freeway all the time that are on the freeway that have multiple
Gas or
tenants.
restaurant, but I think that's a Caltrans thing that would have to be,
Oh, we are intending to petition Caltrans to
That
allow,
eliminates a lot of this
to allow to
issue.
have
Does.
those
you know,
brand
apparently
signs on the
overpopulation.
freeway
Yeah,
itself.
because you can
Must
have,
be really
here's,
rural.
you know, you got 6 or 8 places to
That's why
go,
they're petitioning.
right? They're all at this exit.
That's be the way to go. That
I mean,
looks much
that's,
nicer.
that's one way, I think, to eliminate this.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense to have a centralized sign on the freeway.
Yeah.
But then you'd have to deal with Caltrans and.
Another note I put down here, if it came down to the decision between promoting cutting trees or raising sign height, I'm on the opinion of raising sign height, so. Just a note I put on.
if you have a question, you come up to the microphone. There's a 3-minute time.
Yeah, no, my name's Brian.
Ryan Williams, thank you guys, welcome. I am definitely in favor of allowing the quarter mile along the freeway. I understand the gateway is still not doing anything, and I think that if we had an ordinance that allowed at least a 40-foot sign, we might have some corporations and proper businesses willing to potentially think about setting roots down here. And if we have an ordinance that's making everybody get variances for signs, I think that those little advertising signs on the side of the freeway, they're great. They're great for when you're in the middle of nowhere and you don't know when you're gonna get your next gas station. But if you're in a town, when you already kind of generally know where you are, you need to be able to see those individual businesses that you're looking for. And again, a sign on the side of Montgomery, the ability to have that would allow the types of businesses that we're looking to have in the gateway. We're not I mean, yes, we want small businesses, but we want anchor established businesses to create the community and the connection to downtown that we're looking for. And we really want to curate what we put there. And by doing that, we can make our codes to entice those same companies to come. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and with this code update here, I don't want to bite off. I don't want project creep, as we say. The comprehensive sign code provisions within our municipal code are beyond limiting. It allows a 10% increase in sign regulations. It allows a sign height up to 15 feet. In all honesty, if the gateway were to come in and develop in the next couple of months, they would be before this body for a variance because they would be exceeding the maximum allowed signage for their wall signs on the property and for their monument signs. So that is a ripe development for a comprehensive sign program to allow a quality look with signage that relates to the development. But unfortunately, our regulations at this time are very limited in what they allow. So if it's simple enough, I'm going to try and bite that off and run something by you guys as the planning commission to see what your thoughts are on that. Because our sign code, in my research, this was an issue all the way back in 2002 when Joe Sherman was our planning manager, and they were trying to get a group together to evaluate sign regulations for shopping centers because our sign code was overly limiting for shopping centers, and it was targeting individual developments. And so you'll notice a lot of development, even on the north side of Oro Dam around the Maverick site, that's vacant right now. I know those properties are being advertised with space for a 65-foot tall freeway-oriented sign. Staff have never seen an application for that, and that would not be allowed under our current regulations. So a lot of individual property owners are advertising their properties before they even get approval or run anything by the city. That's not uncommon, but we want to make sure regulations are set up to address those things.
If you were emailing us an update, Wes, would we be able to straw poll by email, or does it have to be an official thing in here?
I think the Brown Act would not allow
Okay.
a straw poll by email. But let's, I think we have some direction here, just based on the conversations. One is that probably 40 feet in height would be something that this commission might accept at intersections and along Highway 70 to encourage multi-tenant signs along 70 other than at intersections. Because to avoid a proliferation along 70, to petition Caltrans and allow the extra heights with balloon tests and such because of the vegetation limitations and all of that.
So 40 feet allowed, 85 with the use permit from Planning Commission?
At intersections, yeah.
And now it's just 8.
Now it's 8, yes.
I know, 8 is such an odd number.
Yeah, I mean, I could, if that Applebee's area develops into something big, they're gonna want a big sign.
They will, yes.
And that's not an intersection.
Half of it is within the quarter mile though, so.
So the Starbucks Chevrons, or the Chevron sign is 40 feet right now? I'm trying to get a visual of what.
Chevron sign is 40 feet.
And Mavericks is more than double that. But, so I'm
Yes.
wondering, I mean, I'd probably be willing to go 50 feet or 60 in those areas, just
Yeah.
so people don't have to get a variance and it's a little more flexible, personally.
He has to be at 70. We had the pictures at the DRC meeting, and the 60-foot, you couldn't see the sign.
The
so,
tractor.
Yeah,
Right.
the
The one on top of the hill.
Chevron
Okay.
and Starbucks, yeah.
Yeah,
Because
And
that's
that-
an elevation change climbing
Right.
on the freeway there. as you
And
come up,
limited
so,
by
yeah.
vegetation.
And vegetation's gonna keep on growing,
Yeah.
so I don't quite know how that works. But
Okay, well, we can put our heads together and craft something and bring it back, perhaps at the next meeting for discussion.
Appreciate that, Wes. Thank you.
Will that have to be voted on by city council also?
Ultimately, it would, yes, before it
there-
becomes law, yeah.
Is that a one-time thing or a two-time thing, or?
Depends on the council, and it depends on how much public input we can get during the planning commission process versus
Yeah,
the
'cause
city
that's what we
council
need to do.
process. Yeah,
Just kind of wondering how many months it could take, if everything went right? 2,
Probably 3.
3?
Yeah,
And so they would be on hold with their signs during that time, but then they
Yes,
wouldn't
they
have to
would.
do a variance, except for Starbucks would, because theirs it's to be 70. So,
Yeah, but I think they said they have until what, August, so we should be good if we get on it now, right? At the DRC meeting, I remember them
Yeah, the
saying
Chevron
August.
wanted, he said, the sign guy said they were gonna be putting it in probably around August or so sometime, so, yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
The Tractor Supply, I believe they have a soft opening in May.
They're ready to go now, yeah.
May
right
3rd.
away.
yeah.
Yeah,
Can we just waive their variance and let them have the sign?
No, we can't do that.
Not fair.
okay. Well, thank you, staff. I think we have enough direction. Is that good for you, Connor?
Yes.
All right, we're done with that. We will move to commissioner reports. Historic Advisory, Planning Commission, DRC. No, staff reports?
I have nothing to report at this time.
Really?
Okay, if that is it, we will adjourn to April 25th, 2024 at 6 PM.